It's welcoming our favorite guest of the week, All City's own NFL analyst, Brian Baldinger here to talk a little Cardinal football. Mercifully, we watched that game on Sunday, Baldy, and I'm not gonna toot my own horn. I have to see this team beat Sean McVay to believe it can actually happen.
Well, they're not going to beat him as long as Kyron Williams is running. He destroys the Cardinals. He destroyed you the first time he played you. He destroyed you on Sunday. And getting back in the uniform, I was just looking it up, though, because you can't help but watch him. He had 200 yards of offense and ran through you. But they're 4-0 when he gets 15 touches in a game right now. Mm-hmm. He gives them that balance, the run game that they really, really want. He gives them pop. And really, the Cardinals, that was the worst defensive effort. I mean, they couldn't tackle.
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, when you watch the film, Baldy, as you always do week in and week out, what looked worse, the Arizona Cardinals on offense or the Cardinals on defense?
Well, outside of the tush push, that got them the lead to 8-7, I'd say the offense, because, look, they fell behind. It's 21-8 in the second quarter, and they just got in that throwing game. And I don't know, you could have Drew Brees. You're throwing it 50 times in this league. It's generally not going to work out good. It just isn't. And Kyler dropped back 40 times. He's running all over the place. I think we talked a little bit about Hollywood Brown as the number one. Well, you saw him last week. I mean, he's just too easily defensed. They went to him a dozen times, and guys, I mean, pick a corner with the Rams. They all kind of defended him. It's just tough to get the ball into him.
Baldy, how are the Cardinals? I mean, they have to know this internally, but externally here, we're sitting here 8-game stretch for Kyler Murray to play football on a bad team right now. Cardinals have a top 3 pick currently in the 2024 NFL draft. How do you evaluate Kyler Murray in whatever that was on Sunday? To your point, you can't ask a quarterback, whether it's Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Kyler Murray, to drop back 45 times a game and give your best offensive weapon in James Conner 6 carries. Yet, we're sitting here. He's 1-2. He's got a completion percentage just over 60%. His quarterback rating, I think, is sub 80. How do they evaluate Kyler Murray given the state of this roster? Is it even fair to do that?
It's probably not all that fair, but you do have to evaluate. You have to, look at your team going forward. I always think this might be rose-colored glasses, but you have to think are we building a roster that can win a championship? I mean, I just think, I live in Philly. Their roster just reflects they want to win championships. And it has been doing that for 6 years. The Cardinals are a long ways away. They're new coach, new general manager. You got to build it. But you have to ask those questions. Is this a stopgap guy? Is this a starter? Is this a frontline starter? Is this a guy that we pay, the going rate to make him a part of the pillar of this team going forward? And ultimately, when you look at quarterbacks, can you win a championship with this guy? Not many teams can claim that their quarterbacks can right now. There's not a whole lot out there that can make that claim. But you have to ask that question about the guy.
I mean, I think Jonathan Gannon, at least, and this is just speculation, sees that Kyler can do some similar things to what he witnessed in Philadelphia. Now, obviously, what Hurts does from a leader standpoint is tough to match even across the league. But do you see that Kyler Murray could maybe tap into how Hurts is successful in that Philly offense?
Well, you have to, you have to be yourself. I mean, Jalen is just a different guy. He's just he never stopped thinking about winning championships. He never stopped thinking about getting better. But I would say if I was Jonathan, I would probe Kyler. How good do you want to be? Mm-hmm. How hard do you want to work at this? And I'm not saying he's not working at it or anything like that. But how good do you want to be? Because all I've seen from Jalen is a guy that's just still on a trajectory that's just going up. Now, we saw Kyler. He came out after, 11 months out, and he played really good in the first game. And we haven't really seen that since. And so, he comes in midseason. It's a new team. He's throwing different guys. You got to find your rhythm. You're going against a pretty good team, and you're playing from behind most of the game. I would say that he still has to – I just think he's got a lot to prove to himself and to this whole staff about what he can do, what he can become, what he wants to become. And that's all up to him. Like, you shouldn't have to like go in the coach's office to tell him. You should see it. It should be reflected in your work habits and your commitment.
I know it's not apples to oranges, Baldy, but I look at like a team like Dallas with Dak Prescott, who I think everybody would agree, top half quarterback, maybe a top 12 quarterback in most seasons. Yeah. And they went out and they got him CeeDee Lamb, and Mike McCarthy knows what he's doing, and they get Brandon Cooks, and he's an MVP candidate, and he's 30 years old. And he's playing his best football. I'm holding out hope. Is that a tangible goal for the Cardinals to say, we're just going to go out, we're going to scrap this small receiving core, and we're going to get Kyler Murray some help. We're going to give him some big physical targets. You see what he's done with Trey McBride. Or is Dak Prescott and what the Cowboys doing, is that an outlier? Or is that obtainable, do you think?
No, I think, if you believe that you have the quarterback, if you believe that he's a true franchise quarterback, which means he makes everybody around them better, and he raises the level of everybody around him, including people not even on the staff, just in the organization, because of the way that he performs and the way that he, that has a nonstop belief to get better. Then you just build around that guy, and you never stop building. You never, you look at Dallas, they drafted Tyler Smith, and Tyron Smith is healthy, and Zach Martin is the best right guard in the league and has been. And, you go out and you get Brandon Cooks, and you build a championship level defense. Yeah. I mean, that's when you realize you've got that guy, you never stop doing that. You make the coaching changes that they've done. You hang on to your coordinator as long as you can. You might not be able to do it this year. And you keep taking a swing at the apple tree to go win a championship.
Let's talk about one of the few positives from Sunday's lopsided loss to the Los Angeles Rams was the opening drive from Kyler Murray in this Cardinals offense. A lot of under center. You saw Kyler get rolled out. He had some open field in front of him. He could have either tucked it, found Trey McBride a couple times, found some open receivers. I really liked what I saw. I know Johnny liked what he saw. And then they seemed to go away from it. But what did you kind of see as far as from that one series where they scored the 8 points from the Cardinals offense?
Well, if I remember correctly, I don't believe they had a negative play or a penalty on that drive. They had a lot after that. That drive, looked like they were in good rhythm. They had positive plays. They converted the few third downs they had, and so that was impressive. Honestly, I was asking the same question. Is this one of these games where they take the opening drive down, they score, they take the lead, and then that's it? Because I see that. And then you go, okay, why does that happen? You go, well, the holding calls and the negative plays, and all that stuff, all of a sudden you're in these negative situations, and you just don't have that guy that you can go to on 3rd and 14 to convert that third down. And that seemed like that was kind of facing them or staring them in the face for almost every other series that I saw.
I mean, not too many bright spots on this roster this year. Guys playing tough, guys playing hurt. I do think it's funny. Before the season, if you were to tell me the Cardinals' best overall player would be a safety, I'd be like, oh, yeah, no doubt. It's Budda Baker. I mean, is Jalen Thompson this year their best overall player when you put on the tape?
I thought he was the best player last year and a year before. I just remember talking to Cliff Kingsbury, who was there, and he was just telling me, Baldy, we got to find a way to keep this guy. You let him in tackles a couple of years, doesn't come off the field, got his interception the other day. He's a great tackler. I mean, I think it's a very, very talented safety tandem that they have. And I love Budda too. I mean, I love him just because of his style of play. But Jalen has been rock solid. And if it's hard to find safeties that can tackle. It's hard to find safeties that can stay healthy. It's hard to find safeties that can, cover ground at the back end of the field. If you make mistakes at safety, you just give up touchdowns. Whether you miss tackles or you don't play the ball correctly, you give up huge plays. But I feel like they've got two good ones there. But Jalen Thompson, I think, has been probably their best all-around player for the last couple of years.
Yeah. I'd love to get into the conversation about Marvin Harrison Jr. because it seems like the Cardinals could be in a good spot to get him if they don't go quarterback. But I wanted to ask you about their upcoming week on the road, going to Heinz Field, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in that defense. And it's a strange team, Baldy. When I look at it, minus 23 in point differential, they're not operating at a high level offensively. What do you make of it? How can the Cardinals maybe go in there and beat a 7-win Steelers team on the road?
Well, they fired their offense coordinator, Matt Canada, and in the entire time that Matt was there as the offense coordinator, they never had one 400-yard offensive day, not one. The only team in the league not to have one over the last 4 years. And Sunday they had a 420-yard day. And it started on the first play. First play, they hit Freiermuth down the seam for 24 yards.
Yeah.
Like they attacked. They attacked vertically for the first time in years. And they never stopped attacking. They took shots to George Pickens and Deontay Johnson and Freiermuth. They didn't hit all of them, but they basically said, we're going to attack. And then they've got a rookie right tackle. I think he's the best rookie. Nothing against Paris or anybody else out there. But Broderick Jones is a good player. And he's playing right tackle. He's been starting now for the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's the best they've run the ball in years. And so offensively, I don't know that they're fixed, but they're playing a lot better because it's a different style. And defensively, they've been playing without Minka Fitzpatrick, which is I mean, he's the rock on the back end of that defense. But they've got a tremendous front. When you look at Cam Hayward's back healthy, this rookie Keanu Benton, to go with TJ, to go with Highsmith, to go with this rookie Nick Herbig, like they got a really talented front. And so that's what you have to beat when you beat Pittsburgh. You've got to, excuse me, you got to be able to handle those guys up front right now.
How do they do that? I mean, I guess you can't trot out the shotgun offense with 4 undersized wide receivers. I mean, Cardinals have to wise up this week, right? Like, give James Conner, have a nice homecoming, give him 30 carries for better or worse, because Kyler Murray didn't run last week. They didn't run the ball effectively at all, or they got away from it. It just feels like you're leaving Kyler Murray susceptible to major damage, major hits when you do not provide him a run game in the shotgun. I feel like this week, for better or worse, and I'm not predicting them to win this game, but just from a health and productivity standpoint, you have to go north and south.
I agree. You got to take your shots, but I would say they got to cover Freiermuth in the middle of the field. He was their best receiver last week, and he'd been out for the last 5 weeks. So they've been playing without probably their best middle of the field target. So I'd say you have to cover him. You can't fall behind 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But in the second quarter. Now, Pittsburgh has not been that type of a team. In fact, they won by a field goal last week, in a nail biter. But they played a lot. They went up and down the field a lot better than they have. But they're not a dynamic offense. I'm sure they want to back it up with what they did last week. Najee Harris had his best day. So I'd buckle up and say, okay, no running back is going to go for 150 yards like he did last week against us, and say that let's stop that first, and then if you can keep the score, keep it down, keep it at 10 points, 10-7, 13-7, whatever. If you keep the score close, you can lean on the run game with James Conner and Kyler and dial up a whole lot more runs and play keep away a lot more, and try to possess the ball longer than they did last week. I mean, I think that'd be a good starting point.
With the Bears win last night, the Cardinals are pretty well entrenched in the top 3 of this upcoming draft. And we've talked quarterbacks before. We've talked Caleb Williams, and you said right away you got to have that conversation, if not just make the pick. But when you look at a player like Marvin Harrison Jr., if you're sitting there at 3 and you're on the outside of these quarterbacks looking in, or maybe even at 2 and you don't like what you see from Drake May, could Marvin Harrison Jr. be a guy, when we talk about these undersized receivers, that can completely change the complexion of this offense?
Well, I remember when Larry Fitzgerald was the 3rd pick, and he changed the offense in Arizona. Kurt Warner will tell you that. He could be that guy. It can happen. I mean, you can light a fire with a guy like that. He's an unusual, talent, just from his size. Just elite talent standpoint. He could change an awful lot. You add a tight end, a number 2 receiver, you bolster the offense line. I mean, you could add a whole lot of firepower to your offense with a guy like that.
Last question for you, Baldy. We'll get you out of here. Do you feel like the Cardinals, in your opinion, should prioritize line of scrimmage play before wide receiver? Because I see a lot of people saying it's not going to matter if you get a Marvin if you can't block people up front. There's a couple.
Well, it's a great draft for tackles. It's probably the best tackle draft that we've seen in a long time. You talk to any scout that's out there, and I know some of the guys, you know, I mean, they're all over the place this year. Like I don't know how many are going to go in the first round, but I think this is going to be one of the better drafts for tackles. And so look, Cincinnati had a debate a couple of years ago, Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase.
Great point.
You know, they went Chase. You can't really regret it, although they don't protect Joe Burrow particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he's been on the shelf 2 of the last 4 years. And then you start going, as good as Jamar Chase is, and he's terrific, man, would we be better off with Penei Sewell? Yeah. So it's a great debate. I'm sure we're going to have it. I'm sure they're having it right over there at headquarters, you know, for a long period of time. But it's going to be a debate because this is a very talented tackle draft.
Their latest episode of the All City NFL show, they break down Matt Canada's departure and what this Pittsburgh Steelers offense looks like. Prepare for the Cardinals' upcoming opponent by checking that out, as well as many of their great just interviews you had. You had Andy Reid recently. You broke down Frank Wright being fired there in Carolina. Some great stuff going on with you on the All City NFL show. We look forward to this every Tuesday, Baldy. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great game this Sunday.
Thanks, Bo. Thanks, Johnny. I'll talk to you guys next week. Appreciate it,
Baldy.
Yep. Take care.